We are here in Monterrey, Mexico with Ruth Martinez at Centro de Fe, Esperanza y Amor, which means the Center of Faith, Hope, and Love. This is the network of churches that Ruth Martinez is a part of, that she supports, pastors at, speaks at actively. So this is church number 1.
We went to look at the theater. My husband's, got this price, and they still need to know the price. They wanted $100. No, they didn't know the price. They said we wanted to just come and see the ministry because they started hearing about. We now had the 25 acres and gone from half block to, and we attended all the FCA conventions. And so we said, well, we had no idea they were coming, and they said, we'd like to go to Monterrey, we just have a day. We'd like to buy some souvenirs. We said, well, we were planning on going to Monterrey because they've been calling us about a theater. How about you going with us to look at the theater, and we'll take you shopping. We never did shop. We never do souvenir shopping. We just don't come to Monterrey. So we come and we see this place. There's 8 lines of buses. There's theater seats 1,300 people. We weren't even able to get in that time because we didn't want the owners to know that we were interested. We just put our hands on the outside. They said there was a place of prostitution next door, parked with the drunks.
Wow.
There was a drunkard, an out person that was on the steps. And my husband said, well, if this is 250 or 300, we can't let it go. And I'm thinking, there's so many people here. But we didn't know the price. So we go back, and 3 days later, I get a call from San Jose, and he says, well, have you found out anything about the building? And I said, well, they said it's $132,000 and it's in 3 months, so that there would be no interest. And so he said, well, I want to plan to see you $1,000. Interest rates hit. At that time, it was 160%. That's why we could afford. That's why we could afford to do anything except cash.
Wow.
Well, we paid $45,000 on the building, and then we hit the worst financial crisis we've been in until then, in the fact that we had 200 people at the Bible school, 3 meals a day, didn't have money for groceries for them, didn't have money for our own family groceries, didn't have gas money. And we get a phone call about 4 pornographic theaters for sale in Monterrey.
Right. Wow, I'm remembering this.
And so we said, why are they calling us about 4 pornographic theaters and we can't even get out the first one? But my husband, to this day, he was such a man of faith. He said the hardest thing was to marry me, and after that, nothing's important. So 4 theaters. So we said, well, he said it doesn't cost anything to go and look at them.
Is that true?
We didn't have gas money, we didn't have grocery money, but we went to go look at it. And they were pornographic theaters so bad that they had to turn the movie out because they were so embarrassed to show us what they were showing. And yet it had children and young people, and you say, why protest?
Wow.
Just buy it and take it.
Absolutely.
So.
Wow.
So then we go look at this theater, and it's 16 minutes of traffic. Traffic light takes a minute and a half, and you have this theater right in front of you. We just kind of knew that was the place. But we still haven't paid what we need to pay on this first one.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at the worst financial crisis possible. But we put our hands on the building, and a week later, we're at the place, and the year previous to the day, our son David had been in this very tragic accident.
Mm.
So now, a year later, to the day, we're making an offer on this theater. And the Lord had given my husband an offer price. That's all he had from the week before. And his offer price, they wanted him $330,000. His offer price, the Lord had given, spoken to him, was $260,000.
Wow.
And we're meeting with the lady, and she says, "Well, do you want the building or don't you?" And my husband says, "Yes, of course we want the building. But we can't pay cash.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any money, and we still have to pay $92,000 on this other theater in 3 weeks."
Wow.
And so
Wow.
she said, "Well, your purpose as a church is more noble than what we're doing. We don't want this to be a pornographic theater."
Wow.
But we had to go to that because that's the only way business could stay open.
Mm.
So a church is more noble, so we can sell it to you for $310. And my husband said, "Well, we can't think of paying that price." And she said, "Well, make me an offer." He says, $260, which is the price the Lord had given him.
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, you've gone way beyond negotiating." So we stood up. We actually stood up. But we asked permission to pray.
Mm.
And we prayed, we wanted salvation. We prayed, "Lord, this is a place that we want life, we want Jesus, not death."
Mm.
And when we finished praying, the tears were running down her cheeks. And
Was he the realtor, the owner of the
the
property?
sister of the owner.
Wow.
That was the negotiator.
Wow.
And she says, "I'll take your price.
Wow. Wow.
$50,000 per her."
Wow.
My dad was having a crusade in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Hmm.
He was actually there with Bob Gass.
Sure.
Bob Gass. And evidently he had a one night off. My dad always had a burden and a heart for the inner city.
Mm-hmm.
So he evidently was walking the inner city of Little Rock. And he runs into this little liquor store front black church that had just gotten started as a ministry. Well, they had a lot of, like this, because he was so big. They believed a lot in fasting and prayer. They didn't think he did.
Oh.
But he's talking about Mexico. He's talking about a God that's bigger than anything, a God that's bigger than Mexico. Finally, they let him speak. Never seen him before, never saw him since. And he needed like $50,000 for a building at the time. He would always buy buildings. And
Totally.
but they weren't going to give him an offering. He said, "No, I'm going to give you an offering." And he gave them a $500 offering. And then they said that he went across the street and there was a supermarket. And he went and put his hands on the building and just wept. And their whole vision was totally transformed that night. Well, now 7 years later, they were in a building twice the size my dad prayed for.
Wow.
They had cleaned up the inner city
Mm.
and they wanted to do a first missions trip.
Wow.
So they tried to track my dad down. 7 years have gone by since this experience.
So this is the black one?
So they tried to track it down, and they found out, of course, he's been gone for 7 years, 5 years. So they, you know, who of the family. So that's how they found us.
Wow.
They had been working so hard. It was in June. And we had agreed that I was going to take them on a tour every morning. So we went to do breakfast. And that day, for the first time, we were invited back on radio. Just as my dad was on radio, he was on 45 stations. All of a sudden, they cut everything out because one of the president's sisters was communications, and she got all of her shit broken.
Wow.
And so, for years, almost 12 years, no opportunity in radio. So they gave us the opportunity. They said, but you can't say Jesus, God, or the Bible. It has to be sound secular. My husband said, well, we can keep your foot in the door. So as we're eating breakfast at the restaurant, he comes to the radio station to make the first pilot program. And the leader of the group, was about 15 people, said, Sister Ruth, could you help me before we go see the theaters? Could you help me make a phone call back to our office so we can take care of the payments through tomorrow? And I said, I don't know if they understand this is $84,500. It's not pesos. It's not $84.50.
Yeah.
But they made the phone call and the money was here the very next day,
Wow.
the day of the deadline.
That's it. Wow. Incredible.
And then, as I was saying, one of the guys in that group was very especially particularly involved in pornography and God had delivered him.
Mm-hmm.
So we, on another theater, we were facing $110,000. We gave it. If I can track it properly, that $500 that my dad planted, I think we would now have paid
Wow.
Wow.
That's the people that he, yeah. Wow.
with the connections.
Incredible.
So cool. That is so cool.
So every time we plant seed,
Yeah.
maybe we won't see it, the generations will.